What's up, guys? It's Christian Welch with the Fantasy Authority, bringing you another 2021 rookie profile. Today, I'm looking at LSU junior wide receiver Terrace Marshall. So as always, we'll go back and look at Terrace as a recruit. Terrace is from Bossier City, Louisiana. He played at Parkway High School, where he was a 5-star recruit, #1 player in the state of Louisiana. 247 Sports had him as the #3 overall wide receiver in the country and the #13 overall player in the country. So some serious prospect pedigree on this guy. In high school, he was 6'3", 190. Now he's closer to 200, so he's put on about 10 pounds in his LSU career, but still just an amazing prototype of a wide receiver body coming out of high school. Shreveport Times, locally there in Louisiana, named him Male Athlete of the Year his junior year in high school when he put up 55 catches, 1,250 yards, and 15 touchdowns. So absolutely dominant in a state that is, very good in high school football. Missed most of his senior year with a leg injury, but was such a stud, the recruiting services didn't drop him. So didn't even really play his senior year and maintained that top 15 overall ranking in the country. That's how elite the recruiting services looked at this guy. So let's dive into his LSU career. Really didn't do much as a freshman, put up 12 catches for 192 yards and 0 touchdowns. A lot of big-time prospects don't play much as freshmen in the SEC, though. It's just how it goes. Sophomore year is a different story, though. So the sophomore year was Joe Burrow's Heisman year, the national championship year for LSU, just an absolute offensive explosion down there. Terrace was the #3 option on that team behind Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, but still had an incredible year nonetheless. He put up 46 catches for 671 yards and 13 touchdowns in 12 games, which is the 3rd best season in LSU history as far as touchdowns go. I'd say a pretty successful sophomore year and stock up for Terrace Marshall. So let's look at his junior year. Joe Burrow's gone to the NFL. Justin Jefferson's gone to the NFL. Jamar Chase is sitting out. Terrace Marshall's now the guy, but Joe Burrow's gone. They have a rotating door at quarterback at LSU last year. Couldn't really find the guy. So kind of a mess at quarterback, but hey, Terrace is getting the volume. How's it looking? Terrace put up 48 catches for 731 yards and 10 touchdowns last year, notably playing in Justin Jefferson's slot position when he was previously playing the other X outside of Jamar Chase. So showing a little versatility, being able to move from the outside to the inside and still be productive. To wrap up his college career, he leaves a national champion. He leaves 4th all-time in receiving touchdowns in LSU history, tied with Jamar Chase. He has, again, the 3rd best receiving touchdown season in LSU history with that 13 that he put up in 2019. And then to get a little bit into the analytics, a 46.5% dominator rating and a 19.2 breakout age. If you're into analytics, you got to like those. So let's talk about what I like. For me, if you're into Terrace Marshall, it is because his physical traits. So we're talking a 6'3", 200-pound, long guy that can add weight to his frame. So think about that, 6'3", 200 with room to add. We could be potentially looking at like a Julio Jones type body when this guy gets into the NFL, puts some size on, and continues to develop. He's only 20 years old, so this is not a finished product. I'm excited to see how this guy grows as he gets into a professional weight program. Massive catch radius on this guy. If it is anywhere near him, he is going to bring it in. Just an absolute freak when it comes to that. He uses that length and that catch radius to be just an absolute red zone monster. So I ran through some of the college stats there just a few minutes ago. 23 touchdowns in 19 games, though, is what really stands out to me. This dude is an absolute weapon in the red zone, averaging over a touchdown per game down there in the SEC. He's faster than people think he is. We haven't had a combine yet. LSU's pro day isn't for another 3 weeks, so I don't have a 40 time to gauge on this guy. But if you guys watch the Texas A&M game from last year, there's a play where he shakes a defender, takes it into a post, brings in the catch, and literally turns it upfield, outrunning the entire Texas A&M defense for about 45 yards. And the straight line speed this guy showed at that size was impressive. So I think when LSU's pro day does happen, he'll be in the 4.4s somewhere. In the 4.4s at 6'3", 200, with that type of catch radius, this is a player that I'm absolutely in on. He hits the analytic checkpoints. So again, he's got the prospect pedigree, top 15 national player. Even with an injury, he was still a top 15 national player. He played in the SEC. He played well in the SEC. I believe he's going to have NFL draft capital. We'll get there shortly, but I think this is a late 1st round, early 2nd round NFL draft pick. So he's hitting pedigree across the board as a prospect, as a pro, as a college player. And then the analytics, that dominator rating is in the 92nd percentile. That breakout age is in the 86th percentile. I mean, this guy is hitting, every box for me. The ceiling on this guy is insane. He may not have the floor of some players, but if you're, shooting for the stars, you could have a potential, Michael Thomas type ascent for this guy. If you guys remember that year, Michael Thomas was maybe wide receiver 5, 6 in that class, a lot like Terrace is being looked at now. And when we look back at that class now, my gosh, was Michael Thomas the best guy available? I'm not saying Terrace is the best guy available, but the ceiling is immense. And he also can line up from anywhere. So again, I mentioned he played X, he played the big slot. When you look at his college career as a whole, he played 60% of his snaps out wide and 40% in the slot. I personally think he's a little bit better as a big slot, but NFL teams can get creative with him, move him back and forth. And, I think that a number of teams are going to be happy bringing this guy in. This is clearly a player I like. You guys can see I'm kind of excited talking about him. So let me tell you some things I don't like. So as much of a freak as this guy is, he may take that for granted a little bit because he plays a little bit lazy. You'll notice he doesn't give full effort on every play. He's not often running at full speed. He rounds off his cuts and his routes. He's not a very crisp route runner, but I think he could be. I just think he gets a little lazy and, a sharp turn turns into a rounded turn. He has concentration drops. He flashed a good catch rate of 75% that sophomore year, but, he's in the 60s most of the time because he's dropping balls that he should not drop. Again, those are things I think can be fixed, but, people like heady players. I talked about Amari Rodgers in my last video, and he's one of those, coach's pet guys that does everything right. Terrace Marshall's not one of those guys. He's an athletic freak that currently does some things wrong, but, I believe that stuff that can get cleaned up. And, for me, I'm in on the athletic profile because I believe in the improvement that can come with those areas. Number 2 for me on his concerns is his release. So despite his burst, his size, his straight line speed, he really struggles to separate from DBs if they're really aggressive. So it's not like he's seen much press coverage in college, which we know he'll see a lot more of in the NFL, which does concern me. If you watch his film, you'll see whenever a defensive back is playing him really aggressive, he just doesn't hand fight with them well enough. He doesn't get away from them. So DBs that are willing to rough him up are going to win against him currently. So again, as he adds size, gets a little bit better coaching going forward, maybe that's something that he can get better at and just really end up being a complete player. My last concern for him is injuries. So he missed most of his senior season in high school with a leg injury, carried into his freshman year at LSU, missed some time there as well. And then in 2019, he missed 4 games with a foot injury. So, every couple of years, this guy's missing some time with injuries. And like I said, he's a big guy, 6'3", profiling him at 210 or so in the league. That's a big frame if he struggles to take care of himself, and I don't know if it's, I don't know what causes these injuries. I don't know if that can be coached out or what, but I am a little bit concerned with the fact that he's missed so much time to injury at just 20 years old so far. Like I said, I really love the player. For me, I have a first-round grade on him, but as far as the NFL draft goes, late first, early second's probably where he's going to go. This year, very deep wide receiver class. The quarterback class is deep as well. We may have 5 quarterbacks going in the first round. I certainly think it's a possibility he's in the second round of the NFL draft. But I would not be surprised if a couple, contending teams in the NFL look at him at the end of the first round there. One for me is the Baltimore Ravens. So they don't have a wide receiver with red zone presence. You got Mark Andrews that catches touchdowns there, but, Miles Boykin's not really what they wanted him to be. Maybe Terrace Marshall can be what they wanted Miles Boykin to be, a huge guy that can take the top off and be a presence in the red zone. I think the Ravens would be a good fit for Terrace Marshall. Us as fantasy owners may not be too thrilled about a pass catcher going to Baltimore, but I could absolutely see that fit happening. The Green Bay Packers, you're going to see them brought up in just about every, rookie profile with the wide receiver. As I mentioned in my Amari Rodgers video, they do not have a slot receiver. After Devontae Adams, they have those 3 guys that kind of rotate, and not a single one of them has played over 50% of their snaps in the slot. Terrace showed us this year in 2020 that he is a great big slot receiver. I think he could be a good fit there for the Packers at the end of the first round. And then a fantasy dream would be if he can land with the Chiefs. Sammy Watkins probably moving on. McCole Hardman's not it. It would be awesome to see Terrace Marshall linked up with Patrick Mahomes opposite Tyreek Hill in that Andy Reid offense. So that's a fantasy dream, but I could see the Ravens or Packers really being seriously in on him as far as the NFL draft goes. As far as fantasy goes, I would target Terrace in your late first, early second round of your rookie drafts, depending if it's a 1 QB or a super flex league. If it's super flex, he's most likely getting pushed to the second round. If it's a single QB, you're definitely taking him in the late first. For me, he's a top 5 wide receiver in this class, and I know that puts me above market. I've currently seen him, high as 6, as low as, 8 or 9. But for me, he is without a doubt a top 5 wide receiver in this class. That's all I have for Terrace Marshall this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the Fantasy Authority on YouTube. If you want to see more content from me, you can find me on Twitter at EvilEmpireFF. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you next time.